How do you build a box? That's the question my dad asked his medical students. And I'm talking about a regular six-sided wooden box. You might be surprised by what he gets. It's not that straightforward. Sometimes the boxes he gets aren't actually boxes that work. So let me come back to this. My name is Alex Deans. I'm 20 and I'm Canadian. When I was 12, I invented a novel navigation device for the blind. And this year, I was fortunate enough to become the Queen's Young Leader for Canada. So I had what I thought was a pretty normal childhood. My parents gave me a ton of freedom, probably too much, to be honest. But I didn't have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or a Game Boy. Instead, my siblings and I, we were herded into the garage in the morning. A rope was placed in this hand and an old tire in the other, and we were pushed outside and told to come back at lunchtime. Now, very early on, I learned this idea of creating something out of nothing. I live in a very old house, so it's great because something's always breaking. It's a chance to problem solve. And as I got older, my parents started to give me a lot of open-ended jobs, whether it was, fixing the garage door or rebuilding the dock or replacing a water pipe. They all seemed like really open-ended jobs. But once I really got into it, I realized that the process was so nonlinear, and that's what made it exciting. So when I was 8, my parents gave me power tools, which came with a pretty significant dose of trust. And along with these 3 rules, which I'm going to call the golden rules, it was number 1, don't be a fool. Treat a power tool like it could kill you, because if used wrong, it probably could. Number 2, always cut away from you. Self-explanatory. And number 3, visualize first, then build. So armed with power tools and these 3 rules, I started to channel my obsession with making things into month-long projects. It very quickly became a family ritual for us kids to anchor ourselves down in the basement. And for 7 months, we would just crank out projects. But I didn't have a VC to finance this hobby, so I stole my materials from my parents. So when I was 9, I decided to create a salt gradient solar pond. So essentially, I had to create a thermal chamber. So I stole the laundry rack, covered it in aluminum foil, and took my lizard's heat lamp to use as the sun. It didn't work. When I was 10, I flooded the basement. I was trying to create a low-cost osmotic power plant. And when I was 11, I saw something on the news about how you could burn manure to create energy. Now, keep in mind that this was January in Canada, so I was not going to be doing any science experiments outside. So I got some pig poop, and I brought it and burned it inside my house. Now, my parents were ready to kill me. But the interesting thing was that I never actually got punished for any of this. My parents gave me my own space where I could be free to experiment. My crucial moment happened when I was 12. And I was walking around downtown, and I noticed a woman. She was standing on the corner of the street, and everybody else was crossing, but she wasn't. I thought it was kind of strange, so I went up to her and asked if I could help her, and I realized that she was blind. She told me that her guide dog had just died, and it would cost up to $40,000 for her to get a new one. So in the meantime, she had a guide cane. Now the problem with guide canes is that they don't help you get to your destination. They only help you avoid hitting things. So later I was in art class. I love to paint. I think it's one of those things where you can create something new over and over again, which for me is really exciting. So I was painting this picture of Steve McCurry's Afghan girl. And I had an aha moment. I realized that as I was feeling the canvas, I could feel every rut and bump. My fingers were so sensitive to touch. So why could I not direct the visually impaired using their hands? So I went home, I ordered all these robotic parts, and started piecing them together. But I had no programming experience, and neither did anybody else in my family, so I had to teach myself how to code online. It took me 2 years. But I worked with inventors from Argentina and South Africa to really understand the technology. So at the end of this, I had come up with something called the eye belt. So essentially, you had one sensor on your belt here, and it vibrated if something came in the way. So I took the eye belt to the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, and the first tester was a guy named Alan. Alan put on the device and walked straight into a wall. So obviously, I'd only solved one part of the problem. Now, the approach that I was using actually mimicked a disease called retinitis pigmentosa. And RP patients lose their peripheral vision, leaving them with tunnel vision. So the approach that I was using used this tunnel vision approach, but what I actually needed was a wide field visual approach, like how you and I see. So I created the eye aid, which uses wide field visual scanning, as well as a joystick that sends information directly to your hands. Now, this was really loved by the patients. Essentially, the system connects with your phone, plans the route automatically to your destination, takes into account all the obstacles in front of you, and the joystick will swivel automatically to show the direction to navigate and tilt to show how far away you are. So here is a quick demo of one of the early prototypes of the eye aid. You'll be able to see a little bit of the joystick in action. So essentially here, I have to leave the room to my left. So just a minute, you're going to see the joystick take a swivel to the left, and now to the right, and it straightens out. So essentially, I can follow it and know where to go. It's like always having a friend by my side 24/7 leading me to my destination. So here again, I'm going to have to turn to the left, and then I follow it and keep going. So I went from having something that didn't work at all to something that now improves navigation speed by 68% for the visually impaired. It costs $50, so it has potential in developing countries as well. I was in one of my first-year engineering labs. It was actually one of the first where we had to physically make something. As engineers, we're told we're the builders. But here I was watching as some of the smartest people I know broke the only three rules that I had. They were drilling toward themselves and getting straight into the problem using a cookie-cutter linear approach, which basically only ended up in two things: injury and a ton of frustration. So I understand now why so many people have problems building a box. We give so many resources to kids. We have the whole internet, $5 robotic kits, 3D printers in public libraries, but we don't teach creativity. I went to university and realized that I did not have a normal childhood. My parents gave me the best opportunity of my life, the education of problem solving. So give your kids the chance that I had, and start simple. Buy them a train set, a great example of something with infinite possibilities. But I'm not talking about a designer train set. Buy them one with broken pieces and missing trains. Give them problems to solve. But if you're more like my parents, get your kid a power tool. It's more fun. And trust them enough to let them use it, because they might just change the world for the better. It's not going to make them the most popular or the smartest, but it will make them the most creative by far. And that's probably the best gift you can give them. Thank you very much.